In this continued series of the Arab-Israel or Israel-Palestine conflict, we discuss about the peace efforts that has been undertaken for the conflict resolution to resolve the issue of Palestine. And then we will also understand about what are the key challenges that are basically impeding the way forward for the resolution of this particular issue. For that matter, we will also apply the Edward Azar model of the protracted social conflict and also Abraham Maslow's theory of the hierarchy of needs to analyze and integrate this particular framework on the issue of Israel-Palestine conflict so that we can give certain solutions and recipe for the resolution of the Palestinian conflict for a durable and sustainable peace in Palestine. So for that matter, we have to see that international efforts has been undertaken for many times from different period of times to resolve the issue of conflict. For example, starting from 1947, there was this UN General Assembly Resolution 181 that was adopted in 1947. That was the first attempt to achieve peace to the issue of Palestine. This initiative basically was proposed to end the British mandate that was given in the aftermath of the World War I, and it was aimed to partition the Palestinian territory into two independent states, a Jewish state and the Arab state, and an international regime for the city of Jerusalem. This partition plan of Palestine was rejected by the Arabs since it was mainly favorable to the Jews. However, the Jewish groups adopted the plan and declared independence into the areas under control of the designated British mandate as per the resolution number 181. But the war broke out between the Arabs and the newly established Israel, leading to the ultimate failure of the peace process. And in the meantime, once there was these tensions and escalation of the conflict, Israel declared its independence on May 14, 1948, and it became as an independent state. After creation of Israel, we see that there was a huge destruction in form of Nakba, and there was a series of tensions and escalating conflict between the Arab states and also the Palestinians against the Israel. And ultimately, we see that there was a war, or rather two wars, that occurred in this particular period, that were 1956 and 1967 war. After the 1967 war, there was another renewed effort to resolve the issue of conflict when the UN Security Council passed its resolution number 242 that was passed in November 1967. It called for the Israel's withdrawal from the occupied territories, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza Strip, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights. But this resolution of UNSC resolution number 242 has not been implemented. Then we see that the Arab states, they have basically again have engaged with Israel into another armed conflict in the shape of the Yom Kippur War of 1973. And after 1973, there was a change of Egypt's foreign and security policy towards Israel. And there was this change of foreign policy shift or foreign policy dynamics that aimed to transform Egypt's relationship from the competitive to a cooperative approach. And that led to the Egypt's recognition, not only the recognition of Israel, but also a treaty of friendship that was happened between Egypt and Israel under the Camp David Accords that were mainly brokered by the then US President Jimmy Carter, led to the peace treaty between Israel and Egypt. Then we see that there were a series of intermittent violence, and ultimately there was this Intifada, and after Intifada 1, there was an effort that was undertaken in shape of the Oslo Accords of 1993 and 1995. This remarkable peace initiatives called for establishing the Palestinian Authority or PA, thereby providing limited self-governance for the Palestinians in two territorial areas, the West Bank and Gaza. However, these Oslo Accords failed to address the key issues of the status of Jerusalem and also the Palestinian call for the statehood. Later, an extremist Jewish assassination of the then Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin in November 1995 put a blow to the peace initiative. The prospects of peace in Palestine remained low since Benjamin Netanyahu, a critic of the Oslo Accords and peace initiatives, assumed Israel's premiership in 1996. Then in the 21st century, we see that particularly during the Second Intifada that started from 2000 and it remained up till 2005, within this Second Intifada, there was another effort that was proposed that is known as the Roadmap for Peace in 2003. It was a proposal that was given by the Quadrat on the Middle East, including the United States, European Union, United Nations, and Russia, to settle disputes between Israel and Palestinians aimed to stop Intifada II. It also called for establishing a two-state formula or two states and undertaking political reforms to the issue of Palestine. However, the violence from both sides and the emerging divide between Hamas and Fatah led to its failure. Then again, after the Second Intifada, we see that there was another effort that is known as the Annapolis Conference that was held in the United States in 2007 to maintain peace and aimed to agree to the pre-1967 borders and the division of Jerusalem. However, the conference was only a political commitment and no binding agreement was undertaken. Many analysts believed that it was a politically motivated initiative. Internal rifts between the Palestinian Authority, including Mahmoud Abbas' Fatah, controlling the West Bank, and Hamas, that won the 2006 elections that mainly controlled Gaza, and the failure to address the issues of settlement and division of Jerusalem led to the failure of the peace process. In 2012, there was another important development that took place in the UN General Assembly when the UN General Assembly granted Palestine as a non-member observer status in 2012. Later, in the first Donald Trump administration, they recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel in 2017, a move that was widely condemned by the Palestinians. Again, the Trump, he proposed a solution of the Palestine, and he called for the deal of century that altered the US support for a two-state solution and supported Israel's annexation of the West Bank and a demilitarized Palestinian state with no borders. This move of the United States was overwhelmingly rejected by the Palestinians and the Arab leaders. In 2020, there was another initiative that was undertaken in the shape of the Abraham Accords that was mainly brokered by the United States to normalize relationship between Israel and the Arab states, particularly United Arab Emirates, UAE, and Bahrain and Morocco, who formally recognized Israel and they developed its relationship with Israel. So this was basically aimed to be seen as the omen for peace in the Arab-Israel equation and also bring about trust building in that context. On the other hand, the Abraham Accords were outrightly rejected by the Palestinians as it called for the normalization without resolution of the core issues, an attempt to legitimize Israel's territorial Judaization of the Palestinian land, undermined the right of the self-determination to the Palestinians, and more importantly, it sidelined the Palestinians despite being the main stakeholders. So, Abraham Accords was the last peace effort that was undertaken or that was taken to ameliorate the situation in Palestine and resolve the issue of Palestine. However, since then, after 2020, again, we witness a series of violence, particularly in the shape of the last 2023-2025 Israel-Hamas War, and there are less prospects to resolve the issue of Palestine. So next we understand about what are the challenges for the conflict resolution. Why the Palestinians, Israel and the Arab leaders, they are not coming to a point in which they can resolve their issue, they can agree to one particular solution. In this particular segment, I want to highlight that what are the key challenges. So the unresolved issue of Palestine is the result of the breakdown of the diplomatic efforts, lack of political will on the part of those who can resolve the conflict, and the inadequacies of the liberal institutional order. Ironically, the world ignores the Israel's repeated violations of the international humanitarian law and human rights laws, the inherent structural flaws in the international legal framework and the decision-making processes, the Western world's political choices, and the power imbalances within international institutions make it difficult for the Palestinian people to achieve the status of statehood. For instance, in the post-World War II order, Palestine, a British-mandated territory, was not placed under the trusteeship system and thus denied the right to get independence. Likewise, Israel's admission to the UN system was subject to its compliance with the UN General Assembly Resolution 194, which explicitly stipulates that refugees would be allowed to return to their homes and live in peace at the earliest possible date. The PLO has consistently demanded Israel to grant Palestinian refugees the right to return to their homes. Not only Israel has persistently repudiated the UN Resolution 194, rejecting the Palestinians' right to return to their territories, but it consistently orchestrated the expanded Jewish settlement in the Palestinian territories with impunity. Furthermore, Israel uses the pretext of the self-defense under Article number 51 of the UN Charter, Chapter number 7, to curb the legitimate struggle of the Palestinians for national liberation, terming it as terrorism and militancy. The international institutional order that was erected in shape of establishing the UN Security Council by giving it powers under Article number 39, 41 and 42 of the UN Charter is based on the structural flaws with veto powers in the hands of 5 states. The monopoly of the veto system at the disposal of P5 states and weak enforcement mechanisms have raised questions about the efficacy and effectiveness of the UN Security Council. The irony of the matter is that since this Israel-Hamas war, there had been ceasefire resolutions, proposal for the ceasefire not only for 1 time or 2 times, there are 4 times that there had been proposals for the ceasefire in Palestine. However, all the times the United States and the Western countries, particularly UK, had been rejecting the proposals to call for a ceasefire in the UN Security Council to stop Israel to carry out its aggression against the innocent Palestinians. In the last resolution that was proposed in late 2024, there are 15 states of the UN Security Council. 14 of them, they voted for a ceasefire, and there was only 1 state that vetoed. It was the United States that vetoed the whole process for the ceasefire in Palestine. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation that was established in 1969 in response to an attack on Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem failed to convince the world for conflict resolution. Moreover, the Arab states, which used to vehemently support and even fight for the cause of the Palestine, are currently appeasing, and some even have recognized and softened their relationship with Israel. The Muslim states rejected Israel's aggression in pretext of self-defense. They called for Israel to end war in Gaza in extraordinary summits in November 2023. Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan lamented the Muslim countries' inaction in the Israel-Gaza war at an extraordinary joint summit of the OIC and the Arab League in Riyadh in November 2024. Interestingly, in an authoritative judgment by the International Court of Justice in July 2024 last year, Israel's occupation of the Gaza and the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, was declared unlawful with the associated settlement regime, annexation and use of the natural resources of the Palestinian territories. In September 2024, the UN Secretary General called for the ending the atrocities being committed by Israel's unlawful action in the ongoing war as identified in the advisory opinion of the ICJ and the release of the hostages. He urged the UN Security Council to yield support of an immediate ceasefire leading to a viable two-state solution as only way to end the cycle of violence. Despite persistent calls for the ceasefire, the UN Security Council has failed to achieve a ceasefire deal for the issue of Palestine. So given this situation, we find that actions, reactions and inaction on the part of those who can positively play their role to resolve the conflict contribute to the perpetuation of the conflict. We see that because of these failures of the peace efforts and those who can take actions and they are not taking actions lead to this perpetuation of the conflict into the Palestine in the regional context and at the global level.